Hello, dear students. We are again back in your own platform of biology again with the next NCERT explanation of paragraph 19.5. After 19.4, we have reached at paragraph 19.5. This is basically the mechanism of kidney function. Basically, in this para, we can see here with the interface of NCERT showing para 19.5. This para is totally on the basis of mechanism of kidney functioning. Basically, kidney functioning is completed by three mechanisms, which are first the ADH mechanism, which is also known as vasopressin mechanism. Secondly, the RAS mechanism, and third and the last mechanism are A and F mechanism. Mainly kidney is being functioned by these three mechanisms, out of which these two mechanisms, the ADH mechanism and the RAS mechanism, basically activates when there will be a downfall on BP, the blood volume, as well as the GFR. But in the case of ANF mechanism, this mechanism starts when there will be an increase in BP, the increase in blood volume, or we can say that the increase in glomerular filtration rate. So we can say that this two mechanism of kidney functioning are antagonistic to the A and F mechanism of kidney functioning. So let's one by one go through all these three mechanisms. Now let's see this first mechanism, which is basically the ADH mechanism. ADH is the antidiuretic hormone, which is also known as vasopressin. Now see what happens. Basically, this mechanism we know that activates when there will be a downfall in the blood volume, downfall in the blood pressure, as well as the blood filtration rate. It means when there is a case of dehydration in the body, in the case of dehydration in the body, the heavy loss of water, which leads to the decrease in the blood volume. It means this will lead to the decrease in blood volume. And finally, this decrease in blood volume will lead to the decrease in blood pressure also. And finally, the glomerulus filter rate will also downfall. It means when there will be a case of dehydration, this dehydration leads to the activation of the osmoreceptors. This osmoreceptors basically gets sent and get activated and sends the message to the hypothalamus. Basically, this hypothalamus sends the message to the posterior pituitary. Basically, this posterior pituitary is also known as plasma dorsum, releases ADH, which is antidiuretic hormone, and this is a very good vasoconstrictor. Basically, it impress the blood vessel and finally increase the blood pressure and maintain the blood pressure by increasing it. Okay, now see, this will also act on the collecting tissue, the collecting duct of the nephron, and lead to the reabsorption of water. Reabsorption of water as well as sodium. So finally, it will also maintain the blood volume. It means we have finally maintained the blood volume and blood pressure. It will lead to the maintenance of GFR also. This was the first mechanism of kidney to maintain the blood pressure and blood volume. This is called ADH mechanism. Now see the second mechanism, which is called RAS, the renin angiotensin aldosterone system. The second mechanism, this is RAS. This is a very important concept for me. This is the RAS mechanism, basically called renin angiotensin aldosterone system. This system also had when there is a downfall in the blood volume and the blood filtration rate. What happens there? Let's see. This was the government capsule. If there is a fall in GFR, there will be less filtrate into the capsular space. There will be less filtrate into the capsular space. It means the filtrate is also containing less amount of sodium in compared to initial stage, and maximum of that less sodium will be absorbed by ACP. And finally, very small amount of sodium is being released into the DCP. So when there will be a less concentration of sodium in the DCP, this will lead to stimulate the JGC, the juxta glomerular cells. It means these cells will start releasing renin, and this renin is a very good vasoconstrictor. Vasoconstrictor, it means it will press the blood vessel and increase the blood pressure, and this renin will also act on the angiotensinogen. Angiotensinogen, basically this molecule is already present inside the blood, and this renin will act on this angiotensinogen and convert it into angiotensin 1, and further this angiotensin 1 will be converted into angiotensin 2, or we can say angiotensin 2 in the respect of ACE, which is basically the angiotensin converting engine released by the lungs. And this angiotensin 2 is basically going to act on the DCP and restart reabsorption of sodium and water and maintain the blood volume. And finally, when the blood pressure, this will maintain the blood pressure, this will maintain the blood volume, and finally this both maintenance will lead to the maintenance of GFR also. And finally, we are again successful in the maintenance of GFR, which was the main goal of this RAS mechanism. Basically, but I see one thing. The main more detail is studied. This renin will convert angiotensinogen into angiotensinogen first, and further into angiotensin 2. This angiotensin 2 is a good vasoconstrictor and leads to the increase in blood pressure. And this angiotensin 2 will again act on adrenal cortex. Adrenal cortex. And basically this adrenal cortex will start releasing the aldosterone hormone. And this aldosterone will act on the DCP and leads to the increase in the reabsorption and finally maintaining the blood volume. So this contribution of renin as well as aldosterone in this mechanism to maintain the GFR. This is finally the RAS, renin angiotensinogen aldosterone system. Now let's go on the third mechanism, which is antagonistic to previously studied two mechanism, which is A and F mechanism. A and F mechanism, which is called atrial natriuretic factor. Basically, this is an hormone released by the right atrium. Now see what happens. Basically, this third mechanism, the ANF mechanism, is operated and started when there will be an increase in blood pressure, when there will be an increase in blood pressure, or blood volume will be increased. Finally, the GFR is more than the initial state. In this condition, this will start working. Now see what happened. At this condition, the heart, the human heart, basically the right atrium of human heart, start releasing atrial natriuretic factor, which is also known as atrial natriuretic peptide, and this is a very good vasodilator. It means it will dilate and relax the lumen of the vessel and leads to then decrease in blood pressure. And finally, we have maintained the hypertension portion by releasing atrial natriuretic factor, which is a good vasodilator. So this was the mechanism, ANF mechanism.